That's my favorite way to always start a meeting. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. And people are going to be joining us, and those of you who couldn't make it, we still love you and miss you. Thanks for watching the recording. Thanks for being with us. Rach and I were just kind of trying to figure out where we are. Oh my goodness.
I feel like we're dazed and
Do
confused.
you guys have those whirlwind summers or time periods where you're like, we are all over the place, and you're like running kids here and there and tackling all these projects and goals and vacations and family gatherings, and we have just had an epic adventure. It's been so fun. And we got to, once we came in from Mexico, we got to go all the way through Texas and New Mexico, Arizona, visit with some friends, have some new adventures. What's actually been cool for the last few weeks is we got to try a lot of new things.
I think we're in San Miguel last time we met.
No way. Awesome. Well, so we'll just give a quick update then. For Kimball, who turned 16 on his birthday, we stopped in Monterrey, Mexico. And on Friday, we went bungee jumping. They have this platform over this cliff overlooking this.
Well, they went bungee jumping.
Yeah, they went. So let's see. Kimball, Aaliyah, Parker, and Atlas went bungee jumping.
Atlas is 10.
Atlas owned it as a 10-year-old. He just kind of fell limp off the side of the platform when the guy said, 3, 2, 1, and Atlas just went, It was awesome. He was so scared, but he faced his fear. Then the next day, he totally wanted to do it. The next day, we wanted to go skydiving because that's what Kimball wanted for his birthday. So we went out and found a little airplane out in this field by all these farms.
I had previously researched the company, and they had good reviews and everything. I'd done all my research, so it wasn't like we just found a random little plane in the middle.
Anybody got a plane out here we can jump out of? So we found some good stuff, and so the deal was for, including Rachel and Parker and Kimball and Aaliyah, we're gonna go skydiving, and they went. And Rachel was the first one out of the plane.
Yeah, it was awesome.
She loved it.
I loved it.
I was like,
I would do it again. I was terrified, but I would do it again.
It's such a cool feeling. So then Atlas, who's 10, was sitting there. He's like, I want to go skydiving. I was like, let's go, buddy. So we paid a little extra, and Atlas and I were able to go skydiving. And so, man, wow, right? What a day for a 10-year-old to go skydiving. Woo, what a day. It was so fun. And then we tried wake surfing in Arizona, and then we went out to California. We went surfing in some freezing cold Southern California water. Yowzers. Went up, did some awesome mountain biking, hung out with some cool peeps for a while, went to Tahoe, and then drove across the Nevada desert into Utah. We're now in Utah for a little bit. So it's been fun. It's been super fun. Mary, you want to skydive? Do it.
It's
awesome. And pass on the bungee jumping.
Yeah.
The bungee jumping is a little intense, man.
I did that once, and I won't do that again. But I will skydive again.
Yeah. The jolt and the free fall of bungee jumping is crazy. But skydiving, you just kind of fall out of the plane and just cruise. It's pretty awesome. It's really fun. So cool stuff, you guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Same with mine.
Yeah, exactly. Rachel's like back. So it's a blast. So anyways, can I put in a little plug here for everybody? Regularly attempt new things. And have your children try new things. I think that is so critical for their development. In fact, let's do this real quick. I just want to ask, what's something new you or your children have done recently? And just take inventory, because you might be like, geez, we haven't done something different or new for a long time, or you may have done it yesterday, right? But I want you to think about this because it's critical for development. The brain is hardwired to love novelty, new things, different things. And it lights up our brains. literally lights up our brains and activates so much stuff in our lives. And it makes life feel exciting and fresh and adventurous. We're trying new things.
Well, sorry, finish that thought.
Well, and those, the longer we go without new things, the more we start to shrink and we become afraid of things that did not used to scare us. Like, let that sink in. No joke. You start retracting and contracting, you start experiencing atrophy, and you can work yourself into this teeny little corner. I have a friend who did that. She started working from home and then didn't go out much, and then had her groceries delivered, and then things got canceled, and she walked herself in this corner, and now she's afraid to even go outside and go to the grocery store and do things she used to do normally. She just shrunk back into this space, and now she's afraid. And I've seen that for years. And then the opposite of that is true, where you're just constantly expanding by trying new things. So whether it's a new restaurant or what, I just keep going.
I'm waiting. So I just want to add in here a little psychology piece, for lack of a better word, that this is true, and this is especially true, something you need to do if you or your kids, I mean, you touched on it, are afraid of doing things. Because in clinical psychology, the best method for helping someone to overcome their fears is by facing them. Now, that might be little baby steps. Like, you don't have to go, if they're afraid of heights, you don't go skydiving that day.
Or you could.
But maybe you have them climb up on a ladder a little bit, and it's step by step until you could get to the point where they could skydive. But that's really the only best way to handle fears and overcoming fears. And it's really fascinating because I guess we've talked about this before. Obviously we have, because our daughter, Kaya, she's in town too. So she's actually been living in Texas and working, but she's now in town with us in Utah. And she's told us last night, she's like, when you guys come to Texas, which is in a week from Saturday, we'll be in Texas, I want to go shooting with you because I'm afraid of guns. So she was like, I just think that's cool, because she's manifesting that psychology that we've talked about before, that if you're afraid of something, you need to face it. And so she's like, Dad, will you take me shooting? Because I'm scared of guns.
Which is cool, because last time I attempted that, she wouldn't, nothing. No way. And so it's super cool. Hey, little buddy, way to go. You went on the amusement park rides that scared him before. Nicely done, man. Nicely done. That is awesome. That's a great example. Love it. Okay, so do new things all the time, my friends. Do new things all the time.
If they scare you. I was
even or especially if they scare you.
Which is why I made myself do it.
Yeah, you rocked it, babe. Bam. Okay, ready? We got some questions. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in here.
We had one emailed in.
We had a question emailed in that we get to and have to address. And so we'll hit with that.
And we do have another one.
If we have
time.
Okay, here we go. Why don't you read it?
Okay. I have been trying to change my tone to more calm and loving when correcting my children for their behavior.
Ooh. We could spend the rest of the time on that sentence right there.
They know I'm supposed to speak to them respectfully and call me out when I'm not. So that's probably a pre-decided on rule.
Yep.
They do this sometimes even when I think I'm sounding calm but firm. I'm correcting them usually for being disrespectful to me, and they turn it around and say, well, you're not being respectful to me. I'm not really sure how to handle it the right way. Sometimes they seem to be trying to use it to justify getting out of their consequence for their behavior. Mainly, this is my 11-year-old son. It's hard to follow through with the consequence they've earned with their behavior when they view I am not getting any consequences for mine.
Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
They're playing this little game of like, whoa, I can't be in trouble here because you're not being in trouble. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that is challenging because especially if we've if we have specifically asked our children to do something to help us improve, yeah, they are gonna
Kids are the
ride
best.
that train.
Yeah, they're the best accountability partners. So only ask them for help when you really mean it,
Right.
because they're going to be all over it.
And when it can be really clear. So I guess I'm just going to unpack this little by little here, because there's a lot of different elements in it. There's a lot of different pieces here. Can I make this smaller, I guess? First of all, awesome. Way to go. Congratulations on working on changing your tone to be more calm and loving, especially when correcting your children. Now, hopefully you're trying to be more calm and loving all the time, but when you're correcting your children, good.
So wait, let's pause right there and just ask everybody watching this, everybody watching the recording, just pause for a second, close your eyes if you need to, go in your little mind palace and just say, how am I doing on tone? And do it kind of overall, like take the last week. How am I doing on tone? And this is especially true when you're correcting or having difficult conversations, but it's true all the time. So as part of my coaching, when I'm doing coaching with people, one of the sessions we always have to do is on physiology mastery. It's how we use our bodies to communicate. And it includes your tone, and it includes volume. I always ask my coaching clients, I'm like, when do you raise your voice? And some of them will be like, only when I get angry. Like, well, think about that. Think about that. You've been raising your kids for however many years, and the only time they ever hear you raise your voice, like increase your volume, is when you're upset. Wow.
As opposed to getting excited about something and raising your volume.
Like if you're ask my kids, like, hey, when does your dad get loud? And they're like, all the time. Whenever he's excited about something, whenever he wants to get our attention, like whenever we're bombing down some mountain bike trail and screaming, woo, right? So we all have to, what's your tone like all the time? And I wish we had some kind of magic power where you guys could, like, I don't know, where you could just observe, right? Or be observed from the outside to catch tone.
Well, and this plays, again, when we're looking at parenting and we're looking at an issue we're trying to resolve, we have to always step back and look at everything. So overall tone on a daily basis in every interaction we have is going to affect our parenting. So if we're trying to be more calm and loving when we're correcting our children, we also need to just be more, not even necessarily calm and loving, but maybe more positive, more happy, more enthusiastic, more of the positive emotions more of the time, so that when it comes time to correcting our children, they don't just see it as more of your normal negative. Because sometimes calm and loving sounds like irritating, right? I can tell you're trying to use your calm and loving voice.
Right,
Mom.
exactly. I go, I catch that tone. Jeez, here we go. And they pick up on it. They're so fast.
They're very intuitive.
So actually, I'd love to ask, just share it. If you're willing, share in the chat box or even jump on mic or whatever. What do you feel like your tone is most of the time? Let's just kind of share.
Oh, and this is a good question from Alicia.
Okay, go for it. While they're writing that in or sharing.
Okay. I'd love to know what this looks like, Rachel. You two have different personalities and she's more subdued. Yes, it seems. I relate to that, but want to increase my outward expressions of enthusiasm as well as inner energy. Yeah, that is actually something I had to deliberately and consciously work on, because I had picked up this habit of being more
dead. When we met, I was like, oh crap. Okay, she's still here with us.
She still has
where's your pulse?
No, he teases me about it because he's all over the place and I was just kind of like even keeled. That's what I like to call it.
They're like, what's wrong with your wife? Is she dead?
And I think that for me, I got into the role, playing that role of being more just, well, I'm introverted too,
This is
so
hilarious.
that doesn't help.
Quietly pleased.
Quietly pleased, yeah. I would
Is
feel
my
like that.
version of enthusiasm.
Exactly, right. I get that. And so I had to work on, first of all, recognizing the different emotions that I would feel throughout the day, trying to make sure I was cultivating positive emotions, and then expressing those in whatever way expressing it looked like for me. Okay, I'm not usually yelling and screaming like Greg, although sometimes I do that now.
Which was so cute, you guys, because it was so awkward for her. She's like, I'm going to be more emotive. I'm going to share some expression. And I could tell it. And I knew she was nervous. She's like, woohoo. And the kids are like, what was that? Like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm happy. I'm like, okay, that was a little bit weird. Right. But she wanted to be more expressive. And I want to throw out this big bomb of like, for all of us, why? Why be more expressive? If you feel quietly pleased or content or happy, why be more expressive? Can't you just sit there with your own quiet enjoyment?
The answer is sometimes yes, that's totally fine. But I know for me, I wanted to be more emotive because I wanted my children to see me express more emotion so that they could realize I have more emotion.
That's it right there. Oh, see that? Your kids won't always know what you're feeling. If you're just sitting there like, oh, this is great. And they look over and they're like, is mom dead? Right? Or is dad, what's wrong? And you're like, no, I was just sitting here enjoying this moment. Oh, because it looked like you were pissed. What? No, I was so happy and grateful right now. And like, well, it didn't look like it. Right? We have to let our kids know what we're thinking and feeling. It has to come out so that they learn how to have a healthy range of emotions.
Yeah, I think that is actually one way of leveling up your parenting is by learning to cultivate emotion and express emotion, and then have those conversations about it with your kids, whether it's something like respect or disrespect or positivity or happiness or anger or whatever it is. Like, you have the family environment is the perfect place to do that.
It's the training ground for emotional mastery and greatness.
So especially at home with the family. Now I'm still working on being more emotive in public with strangers, but at home which many people misread as they'll say things like, I thought she was so arrogant. She's so stuck up. She doesn't say anything because she's just sitting there quietly pleased.
Right? But if every emotion that you feel looks like this,
your children,
like, is that your happy face or your angry face? It's the same. It's the same face.
Yeah. So it becomes a tool for helping to teach your kids and to talk about things and to work through discussions. But it's hard to have conversations about negative feelings when all they see from you all the time is this or negative. So you have to learn how to express the positive so that there's a balance there. Or
occasionally I've met people who are always like this, even when they're livid. I am so mad at you right now. And you're like, hey, we got to have the full healthy range, and we've got to be able to express it adroitly, effectively. Like, this is a skill set we all need to develop and teach to our kids. Think about your kids going into life and they don't know how to manage or show or express or feel their emotions, right? I love this right here. Sometimes I have to tell my face to show what I'm thinking. Right. Like, come on, face, catch up.
And I've started doing that with my body. Like, I have to allow my body to show what I'm feeling. So if I am feeling excited or happy or whatever, like I try to use more of my body to show that, right? I like dancing too, so I like to dance.
Well, I know like a lot of you watching this like to dance too. So move it, people.
Yeah.
Move it.
Music.
Here's some the great comments coming in. So my tone is usually positive, but I've gotten some feedback recently from family members. They don't always appreciate my tone when they are in a hard spot. Oh, that's see, that's good feedback. That's really good feedback. They don't want me to be my normal self of strategizing and thinking things through and enthusiastic when they are frustrated. Right? They sometimes people want
they want
mirroring and validation, or seriously, are you going to be positive right now when I'm not positive? Right? And sometimes you're like, yes, I'm going to override your little, I'm not joining your pity party. Sometimes you do. Like you're like, sorry, not joining the pity party. Let's go. And they're like, I'm like, come on. And other times you're like, okay, I'll settle down. I have to do this. I'll settle down and come in and read what you're feeling here. So I'm with you. Right. But I'm not joining the pity party.
Well, because I think, especially as your children get older and because when they're younger, it is easy to kind of do that. And that works a little better when they are feeling sad or whatever, to come in with a little more positivity of kind of like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. That's okay. Let's get over it. But as they get older and their emotions and their situations become more complex, right? As they're going through puberty and the teenage years and all of that, there has to be more of that validation and mirroring of emotion, because otherwise they think, oh, dad doesn't get it. Mom doesn't get it. They're just positive all the time. They don't get negative emotion. They don't get, and if they feel like you can't relate with them at all, then they don't listen.
Or if they're bouncing off the walls, happy, excited, like, youth and teenagers do, they'll have these huge emotional swings, and you're always like this, sitting in the corner.
Turn down the music.
They're like, well, she doesn't get that either. He doesn't get that either. He doesn't feel anything. What's wrong with this person? Interesting little side note I got to bring up right here. I received a message the other day that it was fascinating to me. It was from a woman, and she's like, because I had posted something about being willing to have open debates and to be able to disagree, right? We have to be able to do that. We've got to be able to disagree and have debates and talk through things in our families. It starts at home, and in our society, we've got to be able to do that. And this woman I could tell, and she said she'd taken such a strong position of, like zero, what would you say? She's a total pacifist, like
zero contention,
no contention, no disagreement. Like she will avoid any kind of disagreement at all costs. And she said something so interesting. Like I would love to talk to her more and work with her husband. She said her husband for years has been telling her that he feels stifled because she'll never engage in a debate with him. And she's like, no, never. Right. And it's almost like you make this pious thing of like, I will never be in disagreement. That's not healthy. And if your husband or your wife keep saying these things to you, like, let the flag like catch your attention. Like, wait a minute. It was really fascinating. I'd love to have I don't even know who they are, but I'm like, I would love to talk to you. Because she's taken this pious position of like, I'll never disagree with you because I'll do anything to avoid a feeling of tension. You're like, no, like you're pretending to only have one emotion. And your husband feels like, I can't even talk to you about like meaningful things or whatever because you just always are so passive. That's another example of this.
Yeah. And so I think that our parenting actually becomes more effective when we can also have the full range of emotions and share them appropriately with our children. Like, I'm not saying you need to come and like tell them all of your adult burdens, right? That's not necessarily healthy, but to be able to relate with the negative feelings as well as the positive feelings that increases your level of influence with them, because you're now no longer just the positivity person or the Pollyanna or whatever, but you, like, they get that you get them because you have felt the similar things, or you, so allowing them to express their negative emotion and kind of be with them in it also then increases your power to influence them to help them get out of it, right?
All of which means you and I have the privilege and responsibility to be emotional masters. And I want to reemphasize what Rachel just said. You want influence with your kids? Learn emotional mastery.
But yet, I think some people can interpret emotional mastery to be something like that lady of like, oh, I only feel this.
So let me clarify. Emotional mastery.
I'm mastering my emotions, right. So I never feel contention.
Right. So thank you. Let me clarify. To me, emotional mastery is having a full range of emotions. You feel all the emotions when it's appropriate, to the degree that it's appropriate. You have mastered emotions, not dominated, not controlled, not stuffed, not hidden, not buried.
When you feel them in an appropriate way. So like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we got attacked by a mob in Mexico. And understandably, Greg was very angry for like 3 days. He was angry. Now that was an appropriate response. We had been surrounded by 30 men with clubs hitting our van. And so anger was an appropriate response, but he had controlled anger because 1, he talked us out of the situation, so that kept us safe. And then 2, the anger was directed towards proactive behavior. Like, what can we do to prevent that from ever happening again? So he had anger, but it wasn't like, I'm going to get revenge.
In the moment, I wanted to smash in their little masked faces because they were just thugs. There's a mob of cowards, right? And in the moment, you're like, you dirty little buggers. And they just totally taking advantage of our family, right? But I had to keep my cool and talk us out of the problem. And then afterwards, I was livid. And I let the kids know, and they were upset, and we worked through, processed the whole thing. We did it well. We processed the intensity of all that really well.
That is an example of emotional mastery. It's not that we didn't experience anger or fear or all kinds of different things. We allowed ourselves to experience all of those emotions, but we mastered them in that we talked about them, we processed them, and we came to healthy conclusions about the appropriate responses instead of allowing anger to drive us to do something that was dangerous, stupid,
or allowing you guys. Sometimes we allow a certain emotion to sit inside us and fester and rot.
Mm-hmm.
And man, we have to be careful about that. Because you might put on the smiley face, mm-hmm. and yet inside you're feeling the corrosive effect of bitterness, irritation, mm-hmm. like whatever, and it'll tear you up inside.
So,
should we hit a couple comments?
Yeah, we should, but I want to make a comment right here. And this is no judgment to whoever sent us the question, because we don't know all the details, but we're going to bring this up because this is sometimes what's going on with different people, especially if different people have similar questions. Sometimes if we're trying to be more calm and loving, then that may be because we don't feel calm and loving on a regular basis. And so actually then the solution, if we back up, is why am I not feeling calm and loving more often? Because we shouldn't have to try
or pretend
yeah. to be calm and I'm not saying that they're pretending, I'm just walking through the scenarios here. We could ask ourselves, we could back up and say, why am I not feeling calm and loving? And it could be just because it's in the moment and the child is being irritating. And so that's why you don't feel calm and loving. Okay, that's understandable. But if it's because you really just don't feel calm and loving a lot of the time, then that's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed in a different way. But yeah.
But you guys get this, right? You know what we're talking about here, because sometimes you bring your own irritation over here. You haven't processed something. It's all fired up, and you come into a little moment, and the moment sets a match to your huge bonfire, and the poor kid gets all of the heat, and it like way
small.
too much for that. Like, what in the world? I just got a new coaching client, and she's a champ, really awesome. But as we were working through her things, she just had this big aha. Well, so she ended up getting a divorce a few years ago. And we were talking about whether she had processed like the pain of the divorce, which she had not yet. But the way we were working through it, it clicked that she hadn't processed previous stuff way before that she had brought into the marriage. You guys with me on this?
That led to the divorce.
Yeah, that had contributed to the divorce. And so this divorce, they're married over a decade, but there was a lot of issues inside the marriage that she had brought from outside the marriage. Is this hitting home? Woo! If we don't work through that stuff, we'll bring it to a situation with the kids and we're trying to correct them. But inside, I have all this stuff. It has nothing to do with this situation, but I end up pretending or putting on pretense or a mask or acting, I'm trying to be calm and loving when I'm raging about XYZ.
And I noticed like that was something when I started paying attention to that and noticing that made a huge difference in the effectiveness of my parenting. When I started to realize that, the actual reason I got upset at them was because what happened this morning with my mother, I mean, whatever, it could be whatever. Like I talked to this person and what they said bothered me. And so I started thinking about it, but I didn't process it. And I was still feeling irritated about X, Y, and Z. And so I came with those feelings to this situation with my child where they spilled the milk or they got upset at their sibling. And all of those feelings I had been feeling came out in that situation. Now that doesn't allow for effective parenting. That is not effective parenting, because if you allow and this comes back to the emotional mastery piece, if you don't process what you are experiencing and you allow that to come out on your children, that creates resentment in them. Because, it's true. They don't deserve that. They don't deserve all of the anger, frustration, and whatever you're feeling about your adult problems to come out as discipline for their behavior. The discipline for their behavior, the consequence for their behavior needs to be appropriate for what they have actually done as a child, age appropriate.
Right, exactly. Right? Please expect your 5-year-old to act like a 5-year-old.
Or your 11-year-old to act like an 11-year-old, right?
Which 11-year-olds are awesome, the way their brains are working. They're just coming into consciousness. Like, oh yeah, well this was like
starting to think, and they're going to share their thoughts.
Cute little thinker, right? But some of us, can I be just lovingly honest here? Some of us are just walking bottles of resentment.
Well, maybe not resentment, but some
other emotion. Irritation, frustration,
or a mix.
You're just dripping all this stuff. I bring up resentment because I've seen it often where we resent the frustrations and irritations of children family life. And it gets in there and you're like, ooh, this, I don't, ooh. So and it's resentment towards the spouse or resentment towards kids. Like, is it always just messes? Is it always just, they don't listen to me? I don't have and so then it just becomes your emotional stacking of resentment or frustration or irritation or whatever it is. And then you come and try to be calm and loving and like, whoa, man, that's good. Okay, we got to hit some comments here real quick. Minnie said, it wasn't until I started to work on myself through reading great books but I felt like I could take
Mhm.
on the debate and have a solid sense of who I am and what I really felt.
Yeah.
So grateful for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's huge, right? You got to do some personal cultivation
Yeah.
before you can engage in all of these things, you guys. Everything we're talking
Because
about here.
otherwise, debate feels like an attack, and so we don't know how to respond to that attack.
Or it
And
might
so we respond with
whatever,
shutting down
right?
or getting upset
Because
or
you're going to fight
fight or freeze mode.
fight or freeze, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know how to handle it, or you're afraid of your own cultivation. Like what happens if Rachel comes to me and says something I totally disagree with? You might be afraid of what you might say or do, or like, I don't know how to handle that. Where we've gotten to a point now where if she disagrees with something, I'm just like, you need to stop right now and agree with everything I say. Just kidding, making sure you're paying attention. Like, you better stop that thought right now, Rachel. Gosh, never disagree with me again.
Oh, that was good.
Everything I think is right. Which that might be the case. Honestly, we're jesting here, but you might need to stop yourself and say, really, every opinion I have is the right one? Really? Come on. Like, we've all got to be willing to say, you know what, I might be convinced out of this opinion I have. And through healthy debate, you're like, okay, I'm going to modify that.
Well,
right?
that is the point of healthy debate.
Let's hit this one.
Notice when we are wrong and then be able to make adjustments to them.
Okay, here's another one. So I have realized we've tried to teach our children the joy of following good principles, but they are not seeing the joy we feel inside from that.
Exactly.
So they're not buying it.
Yes, exactly. That's a perfect example. And that was one of the reasons that I realized I had to be more emotive, because here I was doing mom life, and my kids thought, there was a point, you and your alarms.
Whose alarms are keep going out? Jeez.
There was a point when my kids thought being a mother was miserable because they never saw me being excited or happy about it, right? They never saw that joy of doing it. So why would they grow up and think, oh, this is something I want to do because mom's miserable?
Let that hit home. When your kids are looking at you, are they thinking, I want to get married. I can't wait to get married. Look at this. Or are they going, I'm not so sure marriage is for me? Or parenting, or life, or working, or exercising, or eating well, or having neighbors, or anything. Or driving. We love Rachel's uncle, but that man is an unhappy driver. It doesn't matter if he's just an unhappy person. But like, you drive with him, our kids have drive with him, and they're in the back like, holy cow. It doesn't matter if it's around the corner or across the country. Every driver is an imbecile, and he lets you know vocally.
He lets us know because obviously they can't.
He's screaming and yelling, and you're like, woo! So he's an extreme example of like, how are you as a driver? How are you as a friend? How are you in your organization, your church, your business, whatever? Like, your kids are watching.
And are they going to want to do life based on how they see you doing life?
Some of your kids are like, dude, I'm never going to church because look what it does. Or I'm never joining that organization. I'm never working on that. Or I'm not going that direction because look. You with me? Like, this stuff hits home and it's so powerful. Now, we're not throwing anybody under the bus here. We're not trying to make you feel guilty. We're just saying, we're trying to bring up the big picture of like, oh, wait a minute. My whole self emotionally is what's affecting my influence and effectiveness with my kids. Being calm and loving or anything else isn't episodic, meaning it can't just be in the moment. Like, in this episode, I'll just show up and be this emotionally appropriate and they'll get it because they're seeing the big emotional picture.
Now that works if the big emotional picture is healthy and balanced, but otherwise they don't buy it. I love that because it's an act for the moment.
So if you come down and now, son, I'd like you, and they're like, I can tell you're
Whatever.
putting on the act, Mom. Thanks for putting on your love and caring act. Bleh. I see right through your little performance. You with me? Whoa, this stuff is good. Whoa. Okay. Minnie says, I love the book, The Untethered Soul. That one helps me process those feelings. Yes,
Yeah, that's a great
fantastic book for that. So, oh man, that one hit home. Okay.
We've all been guilty of that.
Yep. I find that I need some outside people who are not personally involved to help me process emotions sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Be
choosy,
deliberate, choosy. Be careful with that one, because one, you don't want to go dump your stuff on other people, because you'll feel better and they'll feel like they just got vomited on. And you don't want to share your stuff with people who don't have the ability or power to help you with your stuff. Like, you don't go complaining about your poor health to someone who can't help you with your health. Does that make sense? And so, yes, get outside help for processing, but get it from someone that can actually help you process. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go meet up with your girlfriends or your buddies, and they're just like, yeah, oh, whoa, that's it. Or, oh, you poor thing. And they don't help you process it. They just like affirm it, and it feels good for a while, but it doesn't help you. You go complaining about your husband, they jump on the bandwagon and complain with you about your husband. Like, doesn't help. Mm-hmm. Doesn't help. I'm working on healthy ways to also include my family in that, because I feel that's part of intimacy. Agreed.
And that's true. Yeah.
Whoa, nice. My husband told me recently he wished I would say no to him more often, so he would know that my yeses are totally sincere.
Love that.
Wow. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Our spouses and our children need to know that they want total sincerity. Neither your kids nor your spouse want, well, what could be called the duty yes, right? Oh, I'm saying yes to you out of duty. I want to say no, but I'm saying yes. And if they sense that often, oh, you're just doing this because you feel like you have to. Oh, that's just a punch in the gut. That makes sense? Man, this is good stuff, you guys.
So I kind of want to touch on some more things here. And this kind of ties in, this sincerity of yeses, I think can apply to discipline and consequences. If we give out discipline and consequences too often, then they become less meaningful, and our children begin to resent them. They resent being disciplined, and they resent the consequences because it happens so often. Now, again, in this situation, I don't know all the details, but if kids are getting constant consequences for being disrespectful, whatever that looks like, if that's talking back, if that's whatever, that begins to lose its effectiveness. Because what we have found actually is more effective than giving consequences all the time is using love, connection, sincerity as a way to teach certain lessons. So, for example, in a situation like this, okay, you're trying to be more calm and loving, which is awesome. You're trying to speak respectfully to them. That's a good thing. You want to be respectful to them, so they are respectful to you. And if you say something to them and they're like, well, you're being disrespectful to me, it's easy for that to become some sort of like
drama triangle,
right? Like an argument. Now, what I would probably, because I have a 10-year-old.
They'll pull that card every time you get upset at them. And sometimes you have to use a tone of, I'm correcting you because you're out of line. And if they try to pull this card, if you're not respecting me, like, oh, little child, you are getting the response from me that your behavior deserves. So there needs to be some clarification there.
But sometimes the problem might be that, and I look at this all the time with my almost 11-year-old son. When he's in this disrespectful mode or, talking back, whatever, I've learned, and this is true with all kids, I think, I've learned that something is probably off with him that needs to be addressed and is the bigger issue.
Yeah.
So this is something we started doing years ago that made a huge difference in our parenting. And that was, for one, we don't take things personally. If our kids are disrespectful to us, like that doesn't bother us because we don't see it as a personal attack. We see it as a symptom of a problem that they're dealing with. Now, this is true with people in the world, and this is true with our own family. Like, we don't look at their behavior as anything necessarily to do with us, but a reflection of what's going on in their own mind, body, whatever, all of it. Something is going on or something is wrong that's causing them to behave in disrespectful ways. Maybe they're not feeling like they get enough love and attention. I know that's true for my almost 11-year-old a lot of times. If he starts acting feisty, he's feeling neglected. He's feeling like he's not getting enough love and attention for him. So sometimes the response, the consequence of his disrespectful behavior is I spend more time with him.
And I
cuddle with him.
A big, positive, beautiful investment in him is what he needs more than discipline. And disciplining at that point is actually the wrong thing to do.
It's increasing the likelihood of more of that behavior.
And yet parents are like, I'm not going to reward him for that behavior. And like, it's not a reward. It's a human need.
Right.
But you got to let this, it's true with everybody. This is huge. What Rachel's saying here. Like, look at the bigger picture. Like, what's off? What's really happening?
Yeah. So in a scenario like this, if he was doing something and I corrected him for it and he responds with, well, you're being disrespectful to me and this and that and the other, I see that as a symptom of, oh, he's not feeling loved and appreciated. He's not feeling validated. He's not feeling comforted, whatever. And so then my response would be, probably in the moment, I would go up and I would say, I'm sorry if you felt like I was not being respectful to you. I was not trying to be disrespectful. I was just trying to teach you.
Did that happen?
XYZ principle.
You could just relax and read for a minute.
Wait, what was that?
Somebody's whispering to us. I'll go ahead and mute you.
Okay.
That was awesome.
I was like, wait, what? And I would explain, I'm just trying to teach you this. Now, again, I'm touching them. That makes a big difference because this isn't trying to be
I don't like you.
A power struggle. This isn't about being a power struggle of I was being disrespectful. No, you weren't. Yes, you were. No, I won't. Like, that's where it goes if you don't do it. So you're touching them. Now, if they won't let you touch them, that's another sign that something's really off. They're really upset. If they can't even allow you to touch them, they're very angry and they're very hurt.
And they are feeling, correct or not, they're feeling resentment and a gap. And they're like, it is you. They're misunderstanding this, thinking it's this personal battle.
So if they don't let me touch them, then I just say, okay, I'm sorry if you felt disrespected. I was not trying to disrespect you. I just want you to use a different tone or do this or do that. Like, explain what it is I'm trying to tell them. But then I also know it can't end there. That kid needs more attention from me. So then in the moment, if I can, I will cuddle with them. This is especially with like 11-year-olds. I think they kind of they're almost in the not cuddling phase anymore, but they still need cuddling. They need that touch. And so a lot of times they're not getting the cuddling when they need it. I'll spend one-on-one time with them.
Your tweens are still little cute children in a big body that's changing, and they're like, we're all over the place and my brain's changing, like, wah! And they're weird sometimes and dorky and like, what was that? And you just got to love on that all the time. Right. And actually, I want to throw this in there. Can you correct a behavior without being upset at the behavior? That's a question for each of you, just to think through. It's for you. Like, is it possible for me? Am I to a spot where I can correct a behavior literally without being upset at the behavior? I had to work on that a lot.
And more importantly, not being upset at the child.
At the child.
Because again, you have to learn to be detached. Being detached in this way makes you a more effective parent. When you can look at the child and look at the behavior and not feel personally like attacked or angry or like livid. How could this child do this? Well, they're a child. Like, this is what they do, right? They do these things. And just look at it instead and be like, that's interesting. Look at what they're doing. I wonder what's causing that behavior. Like, what's the root cause of it? What's the upstream
effect or cause? Yeah. And lean in there to we're not allowing the behavior, right? If the behavior is inappropriate, we're not allowing it. We're not condoning it. But we're looking at the bigger picture.
We're seeing it as a symptom that has some other cause, right? If you have a runny nose, well, that's a symptom of an illness. So what you want to do is heal the illness so that you don't have the symptoms anymore.
Woo! Are you guys loving this stuff? This is huge. Now, I have made some mistakes with my 10-year-old and come down pretty firmly on behavior, and then quickly realized like that was way too hard. Like, I'd get after him for something, like, no, like, I missed it. That was me. I missed that. His behavior was a manifestation of something he needs. And so I've quickly gone back and apologized and invested, made deposits in the emotional bank account. So I guess for all of you.
So I just want to address this last line here. So it says it's hard to follow through with the consequence they've earned with their behavior when in their view, I'm not getting any consequences for me. Well, my first thought to something like that is like, there's too many consequences going on. Because if their behavior is earning them certain consequences, especially if it's happening chronically, like regularly, that's a big clue to me that something is off with the child and with your relationship with the child. If they're regularly being disrespectful, they're most likely probably not feeling like they have enough attention and love from you. So then the solution is not more consequences, but the solution is more like one-on-one time or more connection with them. So if this is really becoming an issue, you've got to step back and you've got to look at it from a different perspective and say, oh yeah, the real issue is this. And so you fix that, and now you don't have a problem with disrespect anymore because that was a symptom of something else that's going on. So it's not like, and this is one of the biggest challenges of parenting, I think. And I think a lot of parenting books out there don't help solve this problem because we're all about fixing what's going on in the moment. Like, they're being disrespectful, they need a consequence for being disrespectful. That doesn't work.
And unfortunately, most parents come up with very arbitrary consequences that like aren't natural. They don't fit. You're like, what? How did you come up with
and that just create more resentment and more like a bigger gap in your relationship with them. Like, it doesn't work like that. So if you're constantly trying to give out consequences for every little thing they do that's annoying and irritating, and there's a lot of things, all that does is build up resentment and break down your relationship, which then leads to more problems that you have to give more consequences for. So it's like a feedback loop that's damaging. So instead, you have to learn to be somewhat detached, to look at things that are happening with a sort of curiosity, not take it personally, be like, this is interesting. What would cause this child to behave in this way? And think through it. Like, are they getting enough hugs? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they getting enough
eating
food?
enough good, healthy food? Some of your children are having behavioral issues that are only caused by poor quality food. I'm going to emphasize that with my firm voice. I'm going to use my firm tone. That's a big deal. So many behavior problems are simply coming from processed foods. No joke.
Or not
the science is there.
Enough sleep. Like we've had a few more issues the last couple weeks with our little girls because they're not getting enough sleep naturally, because we're traveling and we're staying up late visiting with friends and all of this. And so when they have a little bit of a meltdown, like they cry because their sister took their cereal box that grandma's feeding them of cereal I would not feed them, I know what's going on, and I'm not going to like take it personally, and I'm not going to get a big hard consequence, because
in fact, there may not be any consequence at all, because
there was
you're like,
no consequence at all.
like, oh, she's
because
exhausted.
I know she's exhausted because we didn't go to bed till 11 last night, and she's eating sugar at grandma's house. So I know things are off. So there's not a consequence. We just have a little bit of a talk of, let's take a deep breath. Let's calm down. Let's use better voices. Let's be in control of ourselves. Now, and I'll do this. I'll say, if you can't do those things, then there will be this consequence. You'll have to go back to bed. You'll have to whatever. So I allow mistakes, right? And I don't give a consequence right away, but I do give a clause and a I don't know the word for that. I do like prepare them that if this behavior does continue, then this will be the result.
And this is what will happen. Make it as natural as possible, where it makes sense.
You seem tired. You can't, you're crying. Like if you're going to keep doing this, you're going to have to go downstairs by yourself and rest or whatever. And then, I mean, that gives her the opportunity to get control of herself and then to manage her emotions, which is teaching her to manage her emotions.
So here, good comment here. My 23-year-old is definitely suffering from sleep and diet issues, and it's definitely easier to fix when they're little. So yes, yes, yes. All of you, please, all of us, we have to teach these principles and hold a standard when they're little, but even when they're teens. Sometimes teens act like toddlers, you guys, and you look at it and you're like, your 4-year-old and your 14-year-old are in the same game, because they're both sleep deprived and they're both eating junk. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Right. And you got to help them out. And so you raise a standard. And again, the way you approach this makes a difference. You just say, hey, in our house, we don't allow that stuff.
But
and you make sure it's not there, and you teach the principles, and you make sure they clearly understand. If they run down to Chick-fil-A and eat, they know full well what they're putting in their bodies.
Right. Because we never just say, oh, this isn't how we do things. Like we always back up everything we tell them with evidence, right? So we're always either quoting from books or having them read the books themselves, saying this has this effect on you, whether that's sleep or whether that's food or whether that's negative behavior or whatever it is. Like we always are providing additional evidence besides this is just what mom and dad say. Like we don't do that in our house because we're in charge and we tell you, like we tell them why.
And if they get it from an outside source that's outside of you and it clicks for them, they're like, man, I'm never putting that in my body again.
Yeah.
Or I'm getting to bed, whatever.
So even like with a 23-year-old, I would totally be like researching and finding books and being like, oh, look, this is so fascinating. Look what I read. You should read this book, you know,
Ooh.
Or podcasts or something.
Or actually, can I give you, I'll throw it down right here. You guys ready? You ready for this? Write this down. If you take a note, everyone write this down. Dr. Daniel Amen. And he has 4 videos on YouTube that will blow your mind. One of them is a TED Talk. One of them is a talk he gave for Success Magazine. That's my favorite one, where he says the greatest weapon of mass destruction in the world is the American diet. And he backs it up with science. He's a brain scientist. It's amazing. And then he does 2 interviews with Tom Billahue, 2 1-hour interviews. You watch these with you guys watch them, go through them, watch them with your kids. Have your kids watch them. Like go through these videos. He backs up all the science. He shows pictures. He shows pictures of what sugar does to the brain. He shows pictures of what alcohol does to the brain.
This is your brain on sugar.
Yeah, he's like, it creates these divots. He talks about caffeine. He walks through all these substances were just processed foods and simple carbohydrates. He's like, look, simple carbohydrate, all these potato chips you're eating are literally damaging your brain. And your brain's not working because you're eating potato chips. It's amazing. Right? So watch those videos. They're really good. He's a great presenter too. And he's funny. He's hilarious. He walks into this church, and as he's walking up to church, there's like this whole table filled with like donuts and sweets and junk food out in front of the church before going in. And he's like, these guys are literally killing people and then preparing them to go meet God. Right? He's like, what is this? It's like, right? Like, watch that stuff, learn about it, like fit it all in. And I don't know, I guess the big message today is back up and
Now that
see
you went on your food
yeah, I
rant,
went on my rant here.
Greg gets his food rant.
Eat healthy food. But you back up and you see the big picture of all of this, and for yourself, for your kids, like, where am I at emotionally? Where are they at emotionally? And all of a sudden these problems start to just go away and they take care of themselves. And it's no longer this battle. It's me just looking at the child instead of the situation, and then working through the situation by seeing the child and seeing myself. Isn't this fun? Man, I love this stuff. And if something's off, here's what I've done. If something's off in the family or with a child, like see it as an opportunity or a little challenge to like, let's make this right. Something's not right here. Let's make it right. And you start working on this little puzzle of like, what can I do to really invest with that kid? So I guess one invitation I would give you today is each of you spend time thinking through your personal relationship, well, with yourself, and then with each of your kids.
I'm going to add this here because I know, I mean, mentioned already, but I know when I finally understood this made such a big difference in our family culture, in my parenting. When I start, because I'm reading this and it says, seems like he's trying to justify getting out of their consequence for their behavior. Well, yes, obviously. I think every child, in fact, every person wants to do that. Even as adults, we try to figure out, how do I get out of the consequence for my behavior, right?
But especially an 11-year-old.
Right, because
wow.
Consequences are painful, especially if they feel arbitrary. They feel like they're forced on us by a power over us, right? Our parents. But when I started to see that what my kids really needed was not consequences, but more love and attention, that changed everything. Now that requires you to be detached from it and requires you to not feel like somehow your pride is being damaged if when your kid is a stinker and you respond with love instead. Like, I had to swallow my pride to do that, right? Because I feel like what they need is for me to come down on them. But when I started to see, what they actually need, especially when they're younger, what they actually need is more cuddles from me right now. Cuddles actually became my consequences a lot of time. Oh, my 4-year-old just misbehaved. I'm going to go cuddle with her because she needs more love and attention in order to feel better so she doesn't misbehave.
This has to be emphasized because most of us feel this indignation that this child needs a timeout or spanking or a take away a toy. Something has to happen, which is the exact opposite thing of effective outcomes.
And actually perpetuates more of the behavior you don't want. And I see this all the time in parenting, all the time. And I feel like saying, you're creating your own problems. Go over there and cuddle your child, hold them, connect with them, and you're actually going to get better results. You're going to get the results you want because you're recognizing their behavior is happening because they don't feel centered. Now, this is true with teenagers as well. Like when you pay attention to the teens and notice when their behavior is off, you go and you spend more time with them. If they let you cuddle with them, right? But at least do something with them, listen to music with them and dance with them, like go to a movie, like do things that they want to do and have fun with them. And when you have fun with your kids, your teenagers, they're going to be less disrespectful and less resentful because they realize they actually like you and they want to have a relationship with you. That right there, those things will fix more behavioral issues than anything else, hands down. If you can consistently do those things, you'll have to do, you'll eliminate the need for a consequence. Like I can't even remember like when we've given a consequence for some behavior. Like it's been that long.
Okay, now I know some of you are hearing that and you're like, that sounds like crazy talk. But it's real. Like what do you ultimately want? You want good self-directed children that
who
behave
respect
well.
you and love you and adore, and that's the side effect of this, like the outcome of this. Our kids will do anything we ask them willingly. If the younger kids complain, the older kids will say, Mom gave birth to you, like go do that right now, like Dad pays for everything, go do that. Like they know, right? They have that respect. And they're constantly, thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for everything you do for us. Thank you so much for paying for that. Thank you so much for this. Like they have that love and respect because we have shown them that love and respect. And we've recognized their misbehavior is a sign that they feel off and they need more love and attention. And so the problems and the issues take care of themselves. Now, that doesn't mean there's not, disagreements among siblings and, the 10-year-old annoys the 14-year-old sometimes and all of these types of things. But that's a natural part of growth and development. The 14-year-old is like, why can't you act like a 14-year-old? And we're like, because he's not 14, he's 10. And this is what you acted like when you were 10.
And almost all of our correcting and consequences right now are just a simple conversation of like, hey, that wasn't cool. Let's not do that anymore. And that's it. How awesome is that? No, we're not, please don't misunderstand. We're not saying this to boast or brag, but we've been deliberate about this for years.
We're trying to use it as evidence that what we're telling you works. Because it's working.
And it's not too late. If you think it's too late,
yeah,
because you raise your kids a different way, it's not too late. Create the transformation and you be the evidence that it works. Model for your children. Like dial this in and it'll work. Okay, we got to run. We're getting driver's licenses for the boys. We got to roll. So love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching the recording. Thanks for being amazing parents and good human beings.
Deliberate and intentional.
I wish we were together so we could go around and give you all big hugs, big bear hugs before we go. You're doing a great job. You really are. You're doing a great job. These are just little tweaks we can do that make it smoother, more loving, more enjoyable. And it's awesome. I mean, what could be better than family life? It's just awesome. Okay. Love you guys. Reach upward. Go love on your kids.